Hello, my name is Sarah Woody and I'm one of the Land Management Fellows here at the Aldo Leopold Foundation. But today I'm excited to serve as your shack tour guide and share this place that is very special to my heart, and I suspect a reason that brought many of you here today. During today's tour, I'd like to invite you to think of the shack as more than just four walls, but really as something more symbolic, and that is the core value of family. The shack is about 3/4 of a mile down Levy Road and will take personal vehicles to get there. There are no facilities near the shack, so please feel free to use the restrooms and grab a sip of water in the visitor center while we're here, and we'll reconvene in about 5 minutes. See you then. So now that we're here at the shack, I'd like to invite you to take a few seconds to just take it all in, listen to the sounds around you, smell the smells, and see the sights. Now we'll head back into the shack shortly, but I would like to share some information first while we're out here. So in the last part of his career, Aldo Leopold served as a professor at the University of Wisconsin-Madison in a newly created department called Game Management. Aldo is actually considered the father of the field of wildlife ecology for the pioneering work that he did in the field. And one thing he was really interested in was habitat restoration. So in 1935, he purchased this 80 acres of land that we are standing on right now, partially as an experiment in habitat restoration, but also as a place where he and his family could retreat and have a refuge from modernity and all the craziness of life on the weekends. So one of the features that you might have noticed while you were looking around was this water pump here. What do you think might have been some of the ways that the Leopolds used this pump?
Laundry?
Yes, they absolutely used it for laundry and a variety of other chores. One of the first things that the Leopold family did when arriving at the shack was priming the pump, even before opening the doors, and that became a really nice bonding tradition that they all centered around. So I'm sure by this point you're all dying to go into the shack, so if you'll just allow me a minute to go ahead and open it up, and then I'll invite you in. Please feel free to make yourself comfortable and sit in the benches along the right side of the shack, and think about some words that come to mind when you first enter the space, and take note of some of the objects that interest you. So now that we're in the shack, just go ahead and take a few seconds to look around the space and come up with some of those words, and take note of any special objects. So what were some of the words that came to mind when you looked around this space? Yes. Rustic, absolutely, that's a great descriptor. Homey, definitely. Small, yes, and if you think that the space seems small for Aldo, his wife, and 5 kids, just imagine 10 to 15 people being in the space as well. They often had friends, family, and Aldo Leopold's graduate students over to visit. Now, what you're seeing today actually looked quite different when the Leopolds first arrived here in February of 1935. Now, the kids were super excited when they heard that their dad had purchased a cottage in Baraboo. Starker recalls imagining a stone cottage with vines creeping up the side where he could play poker. And the girls imagined a warm, cozy space with a fireplace. But when they arrived, in the dead of winter and had to hike a mile up the road because it was too snowed in to drive, this is what they actually saw. So this is the earliest photo that we have of the shack, and it actually was never used as a place of residence, but was actually an abandoned chicken coop, abandoned by the previous owners. and it was waist deep in chicken manure. And while this might have been very disheartening, Estella Leopold Jr., Aldo's wife, kept a very positive attitude and said, well, aren't you glad that it's not summer? Because it sure would stink. And then they all grabbed their shovels and worked collectively to shovel out the manure, and thus the shack renovations began. So now we'll take a look at some of those objects in the shack. And I would like to suggest to you that because the space is so small, the Leopolds only kept the most essential items in here. And so all of those items have an associated story, that has some kind of family bonding associated with it. So this is a photo of the Leopold family. They always had a dog as well, a lot of German short-haired pointers, often named Gus or Flick. And all the children are present in this photo except for Carl, who often was the family photographer. So with that, what are some of the objects that really pique your interest in this space?
What is this big stick on the wall?
Yeah, that's a great one, and it's actually one that caught my eye when I first entered this space. Any guesses about what it might have been used for? Hunting? That's very close. Any other guesses related to that? Spearfishing. Yes, that is absolutely right, although it may not be in the same way that we envision it in a modern context. The Wisconsin River behind the shack would actually periodically flood and wash hundreds of invasive carp ashore. And the family would run around and kill as many as possible, and then use those fish to fertilize the garden. What's another object that catches your eye in here?
What's the story behind this big saw?
Yeah, so this is a crosscut saw. And in my daily work here on the property, I use a chainsaw to fell trees that are unhealthy because they're planted too closely together. So it's really interesting for me to reflect on how different of an experience it must have been to fell a tree with an object like this, where you had to work with a partner and physically saw back and forth. This saw actually inspired one of Aldo Leopold's most enduring essays from a Sand County almanac called The Good Oak. And I would encourage you to pick up a copy and read it if you have not, or if you have read it, to take a look again and be re-inspired by it. I think we have time for one more object.
What about these poles?
Yeah, that's a really good one. Any guesses as to how the family might have used these poles? Yes. To hang curtains is a fantastic guess, and that would have been lovely. It actually wasn't the primary way that the Leopolds used these. Yes. Yes, to get into bed is exactly right. So the top beds used to be completely connected, and the bottom beds used to be connected as well. And the men would sleep on the top and the women on the bottom, and they would actually lay out their bedroll and use the pole up here to swing into bed, roll up like a burrito, and the other people would follow suit so that they were all packed in the end like sardines. Needless to say, if someone had to get up in the middle of the night, it caused a big commotion. There is one final thing I would like to point out in the shack, and that is these dishes right over here. You may notice that they look quite different from all the other more rustic dishware in the shack, and they are in fact more modern. Descendants of Aldo Leopold and family still utilize this space to continue the tradition of family bonding and recall fond memories and stories from the past. So I hope that today, after hearing many of these stories, that this space feels less like a museum to you and more like a family home. And as you leave today, I'd like you to think of what your own version of a shack is in your own life. For me, my grandparents' house in Cleveland, Ohio, with its double staircases that my sister and I would race up, is full of really happy family memories. So with that, that officially concludes our tour. I will stick around for the next 10 minutes or so to answer your questions, and please take as much time as you like to explore the outside of the shack, take pictures, and explore the surrounding trails. I would like to invite you to purchase anything at the bookstore that piques your interest. All the funds from those sales do go back to the foundation and furthering the legacy of Aldo Leopold. So with that, please enjoy the rest of your stay at the foundation, and I'd love to answer any questions you might have.